Okay, and Kate Moody has joined us in studio. Kate, going back to the US to take a look at, Joe Biden's inauguration, and we're hearing about his plans for the US economy.
Yeah, absolutely, because US senators have begun grilling some of the nominees for his top cabinet positions, the people that he hopes will be approved and put in place as quickly as possible once he takes office. The former Federal Reserve Chief Janet Yellen, who's been chosen to lead the Treasury Department, defended the $1.9 trillion stimulus package with which Biden's team hopes to jumpstart the U.S. economy. The plan will include stimulus checks for American families, more generous unemployment benefits, as well as financial aid for local governments, schools, and vaccine distribution. Yellen, who helped shepherd the U.S. out of its last recession, told the Senate Finance Committee it was essential to protect businesses and households from the worst effects of the pandemic while addressing underlying issues of inequality.
Neither the president-elect nor I proposed this relief package without an appreciation for the country's debt burden. But right now, with interest rates at historic lows, the smartest thing we can do is act big. In the long run, I believe the benefits will far outweigh the costs, especially if we care about helping people who have been struggling for a very long time.
While the Biden administration will break or immediately reverse many of the Trump administration's policies, it isn't planning a U-turn on the U.S. trade war with China. In that socially distanced testimony, Yellen said she would try to repair ties with traditional U.S. allies, but that she would hold a hard line against what she called China's abusive, unfair, and illegal practices. The tariffs that have been placed on many Chinese imports are expected to remain in place for the time being. Yellen also addressed the issue of taxing digital giants, suggesting she would support negotiations on an international framework, unlike her predecessor, Steve Mnuchin, who withdrew from OECD talks last summer. Well, U.S. investors are betting on that stimulus package passing through Congress fairly quickly, so Yellen's remarks gave a bit of a boost to Wall Street as it rebounded from a tough week and long weekend. Stocks in the U.S. have closed higher. Tech companies led gains, pushing the Nasdaq up about 1.5% there. The Dow Jones rising about 100 points. Earlier, we saw the major European indices closing lower, losing between about 1/10 and 1/3 of a percentage point across the board there. Unions have organized protests and a one-day strike at the French pharmaceutical giant Sanofi, a day after it confirmed it would cut 400 jobs from its research and development unit. The company is planning some 1,500 additional job cuts across Europe. It has insisted the cost-cutting decision won't impact its ability to develop new drugs. Sanofi has been working with GlaxoSmithKline to find a vaccine against COVID-19, but they've fallen behind other competitors and don't expect their treatment to be ready until the end of this year. Union members protesting outside a lab in central France said the job cuts were indicative of the firm's priorities.
Vous savez, Sanofi, avant de faire un vaccin, ils pensent à faire du fric. On n'a rien à attendre de la direction de Sanofi.
Donc on continue en fait à démanteler la recherche et développement en France et ensuite on s'étonnera qu'on n'ait pas de vaccins ou de médicaments à mettre sur le marché français et mondial. C'est quand même assez paradoxal. Tout ça pour faire des économies.
The Eurostar train network is the latest business to warn the pandemic and Brexit have pushed it to the brink of bankruptcy. Linking London to Paris, Brussels, and other European cities, the Eurostar has seen passenger numbers plummet over the past year. Julia Kim has more.
A very critical situation. That's how France's state rail company, SNCF, has described the fortunes of its subsidiary Eurostar.
Les conditions sanitaires qui venaient se rajouter au Brexit. En plus, c'est les conditions sanitaires de plusieurs pays qui ne se combinent pas entre l'Angleterre, la France, la Belgique, les Pays-Bas. C'est très compliqué.
Since March, the combined effects of the pandemic and Brexit have seen passenger numbers plummet by 95%. At its peak, Eurostar ran 60 trains a day. That's now down to 2 round-trip services a day, connecting London to Paris, Brussels, and Amsterdam. And those trains are only 10% full. The company posted losses of over 80% in 2020 and is in survival mode.
On a déjà remis de l'argent dans le capital d'Eurostar pour les aider à passer cette mauvaise passe. Là, on discute avec les gouvernements français et anglais, puisqu'on a en fait 2 gouvernements qui sont concernés. On espère qu'à travers ces discussions, on aura un système qui nous permettra d'aider cette société.
It's difficult to determine who will pay what to rescue Eurostar because it has several shareholders. France, through its state rail company SNCF, holds a majority 55% stake. 40% is owned by a consortium of British and Canadian investors, while the remaining 5% belongs to Belgium's National Railway. Eurostar has urged governments to give international high-speed rail the same kind of loans airlines have received. Without state aid, it warns it could run out of cash by this summer.
Very high stakes there, James, especially for many of us who live in Paris.
That's true, very true. And people getting used to those new measures at the moment. Thanks for that, Kate.